David was driving down a long stretch of road at night. He was making his road trip to California to visit family. It was a long trip from the East Coast, and even longer since someone stole his car radio. He looked at the hole where the radio used to be.
Thanks, asshole.
David continued his long trek down the road. As David drove, his stomach began growling.
I gotta get something to eat.
David drove for a while, looking for somewhere to get a bite to eat. After another hour on the road, and an increasingly angry stomach, he saw a restaurant in the distance.
Finally!
David pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant. He read the sign.
Gnash Dash.
The words were surrounded by razor-sharp, bloody teeth.
Interesting sign.
David shrugged.
Whatever, I'm hungry.
David pulled through the driveway, up to a dirty speaker box. He stuck his head out the window and spoke into the box.
Hello?
Welcome to Gnash Dash. What would you like tonight?
David looked around.
I'm not seeing a menu.
Pull up to the window.
David was taken aback.
I didn't tell you my order.
It's alright, I got you, David.
And David shook his head in disbelief.
I never told you.
Pull up to the window, please. Your total is $6.66.
David glared at the speaker curiously.
Alright.
David drove up to the window. The window opens, revealing a strange-looking clerk wearing a clearly dirty uniform with a ridiculous paper hat. He smiled at David, revealing crooked yellow teeth. David was unsettled, but his hunger had bypassed his discomfort.
Hello?
Hello?
There was an uncomfortable silence until David broke it.
So, anyway, my food?
The clerk held out his hand as he continued to give David that unsettling smile without blinking.
My payment.
Oh, right.
David reached into his pocket and grabbed a few watered-up bills and change, and practically threw his money into the clerk's hand. The clerk nodded to David
I'll bring your food out in a moment.
before proceeding into the surprisingly dark restaurant. David tried looking in, but the darkness was too thick.
Hope they pay their lining bill soon.
David had nodded off, waiting for his food.
David.
David was startled away.
Ha!
David looked at the clerk, who was smiling. Still unsettling, as he handed him a small box.
Here's your food.
David timidly took the box.
Thank you.
David continued his journey on the road. David kept eyeing the a small box in his passenger seat. He shrugged.
Might as well see what I got.
David had pulled over on the side of the road. David stared at the small box he got from the weird fast food place.
Nope, don't trust it.
David looked to his stomach and to the small box. His focus kept shifting between the two until...
Anything's better than just sitting here starving to death.
David opened the box to find 4 chicken nuggets. They looked... small.
I've been ripped off! Screw it.
David popped a nugget into his mouth. Chewed vigorously. Swallowed. And begun to feel strange.
Whoa.
David's vision and hearing receded into darkness and silence. It was a normal day. The kids scrambled to get to their classes. Kids were taking a test. One boy, Caleb, someone who was a bit on the larger side, was working furiously on his test. His nervousness made him hungry. Caleb looked around to make sure no one was looking at him. When he could find no prying eyes, he reached into his backpack and pulled out a chicken wing. He hung his head down so he could softly nibble on it. It was delicious. So delicious that Caleb didn't notice Mr. Thugsby standing over him.
Are we having a snack, Mr. Torrance?
Caleb looked up, surprised. Mr. Thugsby was not a kind teacher, especially to Caleb. Caleb swallowed his last bite quickly so that he could speak.
Sorry, Mr. Thugsby. I was hungry.
Mr. Thugsby sneered.
When are you not hungry, Mr. Torrance?
The other kids broke into laughter. Caleb looked down in shame.
Please, Mr. Thugsby, I have a glandular condition.
Mr. Thugsby hunkered down so that he was eye level with Caleb.
You have a condition called fat.
The kids broke into laughter. Again. Mr. Thugsby pointed to the door.
Now go to the principal's office.
But I...
What did I say about snacking in my class?
Sir,
What did I say about snacking in my class?
This is a classroom, not a feed barn.
Mr. Thugsby sneered.
Good, it can be taught. Go!
Caleb sat in the principal's waiting room. Caleb walked alone on his way home, as he always did. Not many people liked Caleb. Everyone liked to poke fun at him for his weight. It hurt his feelings, but he felt fine not having to share his chicken wings with anyone. Speaking of which, he looked around before unzipping his backpack so that he could grab out some more wings.
Look, guys! It's cholesterol torrents!
Caleb knew the voice behind him. It belonged to Andy Cheeseburger, the biggest, meanest kid at school. Caleb was one of his regular victims. Caleb turned around to see Andy and his two cohorts, Marcus Tender and Tom Fedder, two of the smallest and meanest kids at school. They felt brave when Andy was around, and their hero worship fed Andy's ego. Caleb gave Andy a pleading smile, although he knew it was in vain.
Hey, Andy. How are you?
Andy looked to his friends.
Tubbins wants to know how I am.
Marcus and Tom laughed. Andy turned his attention back to Caleb.
Let me tell you how I'm feeling, K-Lard.
Andy grabbed Caleb's backpack out of his hands.
Hey!
Andy smiled viciously at Caleb.
I'm feeling hungry.
Caleb's heart sank as Andy flipped the backpack upside down.
You got any snacks for me?
As Andy dumped all the contents of Caleb's bag, including his chicken wings.
Sorry, K-Lame. Don't like wings, especially when lint is spice.
Andy and his cronies walked away, laughing. Caleb stared at his wings on the ground in sadness. They were the only thing that brought him any joy in his life. Caleb finally made his way home to the trailer park. When Caleb got to his trailer, his misery only grew as he saw his stepfather, Dan, sitting on the porch, smoking a cigarette. Caleb waved weakly.
Hi, Dan.
Dan glared at Caleb.
What'd you say to me, boy?
Caleb cringed as he forced himself to correct his greeting.
I meant, hi, Dad.
That's better.
Caleb continued his trek to the trailer, trying to give Dan the most bare minimum attention.
Okay, Dad.
You should really appreciate me.
Caleb nodded as he continued walking.
Yes, Dad.
I took responsibility when your real dad left. Probably knew your tubby ass couldn't catch him.
Yes, Dad.
It was like a punch in the chest every time Caleb had to say, "Ugh, Dad."
Yes, Dad.
You seen your mother?
No, Dad.
Caleb finally got to the door and went inside.
Don't slam the door.
Caleb sat in his room, eating his emergency stash of chicken wings. When he finished his chicken wings, down
I
to the
remember
bone,
you.
he would indulge his other hobby. Caleb enjoyed making toys from his chicken bones. He had started since he was little and was on his way to getting bigger, in more ways than one. It kept his hands and mind busy when he felt bad. He had made many toys over the years, searching through his collection. When he found a wishbone, he looked at it in awe.
I remember you.
Caleb thought back to the last Thanksgiving he had had with his real dad. Caleb, 10 years old at this point. Caleb's mother had set a chicken on the table. Caleb forced a smile, even with the ash on his cigarette falling onto the chicken.
It looks good, Mom. I hope so. They didn't have turkeys.
Caleb shrugged.
I like chicken better, Mom.
Caleb's mother shrugged.
Whatever. Enjoy the meal.
Caleb gave his mother a curious look.
Where's Dad?
Mother rolled her eyes as she was about to shovel some chicken in her mouth.
Probably with one of his skanks.
What's a skank?
Caleb's mother shot an icy stare with a mouth full of chicken.
Would you just eat your damn chicken?
Yes, Mom.
Caleb started shoveling food into his face. Caleb's dad staggered towards the door. Caleb's dad staggered in.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Caleb had a big smile on his face.
Dad!
Caleb's mom just rolled her eyes.
Oh, good. You're home.
Caleb's dad had taken Caleb to his room.
I gotta show you something. Are your eyes closed?
Caleb had his eyes shut tight as he nodded.
Are they closed?
Dad!
Alright. Open them.
Caleb opened his eyes to see his father holding up a wishbone. A very strange-looking wishbone. It was jet black with red on all of its points. Caleb looked at it in awe.
Wow. What is it?
Dad had a big, proud, drunken smile on his face.
This is a special wishbone.
Where did you get it?
Dad stared at the strange wishbone as he thought. He shrugged.
I don't know.
Dad shook his head so he could refocus on his son.
Anyway,
Dad pushed the wishbone towards Caleb.
I got this for you so you could have your heart's desire.
Dad, this is...
Get in here, asshole!
Huh?
With neither Caleb or his dad paying attention, the wishbone was dropped into Caleb's chicken bone collection. Caleb couldn't remember, or he might have blocked it out. But after his mom and dad had a fight, his dad left to go get some smokes, and never came back. Teenage Caleb stared at the strange-looking wishbone curiously.
Can't believe I forgot about you.
Just then, there was a knock on his bedroom door.
Hey, Turbo. Dinner's almost ready.
Caleb smiled.
Can we have...
Yeah, we're having chicken.
Caleb's smile broadened. He could hear Dan walking off.
Wish your lard ass was more creative.
The comment whipped Caleb's smile off his face. He brought his attention back to the wishbone.
I wish the bullying would stop.
Caleb snapped the wishbone. He looked around to find that nothing had happened.
I should have known.
Night fell over the trailer park. Dan was sleeping in front of the TV. Caleb was lying in bed, fighting to go to sleep. He looked towards his window and was shocked by what he saw. A giant chicken skull was peering at him from his window. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. The giant chicken skull was gone. He shook his head in disbelief.
I'm just really tired. That's it.
The next day, Caleb woke up. He decided to check on his bone collection, but to his surprise,
Huh?
he found that it was completely gone. Although he was disturbed by his missing collection, he still made his way to school. Caleb was halfway to school when he heard something behind him.
Huh?
Caleb turned around to see what was behind him, and to his horror, he found a giant skeletal rooster staring at him.
What the?
The skeletal rooster monster crowed again before charging towards Caleb.
Oh my god!
Caleb turned and started running. Caleb got to school. Just as the school bell was ringing. Caleb looked back to see the monster that was chasing him, only to find that it wasn't there.
Huh?
Caleb walked through the halls, occasionally looking back for the creature. He shook his head.
Get a hold of yourself, Caleb.
Caleb entered the class with everyone staring at him. Mr. Thugsby sneered at him.
Mr. Torrance, glad you could find time from your busy schedule to attend class.
Sorry, Mr. Thugsby.
Mr. Thugsby pointed towards Caleb's desk.
Sit down.
Yes, Mr. Thugsby.
Mr. Thugsby stared daggers at Caleb as he walked to his desk.
I'll see you after class for detention.
Caleb plopped into his chair with an aggravated sigh.
Don't sit down so hard we can't afford to buy new chairs.
School had ended for the day. All the kids went home. Except for Caleb, who was sitting with his least favorite teacher. Mr. Thugsby stayed behind to sit with one of his least favorite students. Mr. Thugsby read a book while Caleb worked on a paper. When he looked up, he saw the skeletal rooster again, peeking in from a window.
You!
Mr. Thugsby looked up from his book.
There's something...
Caleb pointed and looked back to the window to find that the skeletal rooster was gone.
Huh?
Mr. Thugsby rolled his eyes.
I'm sure you smell a buffet down the road, but you need to finish your paper.
Caleb glared at Mr. Thugsby. He didn't know what it was, but he had had it with Mr. Thugsby.
You can't talk to me that way.
Excuse me?
Caleb stood up.
I am tired of how you treat me. I have never done anything to you, and you always pick on me.
Mr. Thugsby suddenly looked terrified.
Caleb?
Caleb didn't care about anything his teacher had to say. He was going to say his piece.
You are the shittiest teacher I have ever had!
Look!
No! You look! You!
Caleb suddenly noticed that Mr. Thugsby wasn't looking at him, but past him.
What are you looking?
That's when Caleb heard and felt something behind him. He turned around to see the giant, skeletal rooster standing over him.
Hello!
The skeletal rooster let out a crow before charging forward. Caleb just barely dodged out of the way as the skeletal rooster charged forward to plunge its bony beak into the teacher's chest. The skeletal rooster monster continued pecking at Mr. Thugsby's chest, causing organs and bone to start falling out. Caleb ran to the door and stopped to look back. Mr. Thugsby stared at Caleb in terror and reached for him. He tried to call for help, but there was too much blood in his throat to speak. Caleb stared back, thinking of what to do. Then a plan came to him. He ran off, leaving Mr. Thugsby to his fate. Caleb ran down the hall. Caleb ran down the street. He was surprised with all the running he was doing today. Caleb was halfway home when he ran into Andy. Caleb backed away, staring at Andy and his cronies in fear.
Where's the fire, fatty?
Caleb looked back. He didn't see the skeletal rooster monster yet. He turned his attention back to Andy.
Andy? Please let me through. I don't have time for this today.
Andy shrugged.
Sure.
Caleb was excited.
Really?
Andy held out his hand with a sinister smile on his face.
Just pay the toll, roll boy.
Caleb sneered. He should have known better. He noticed that Marcus and Tom had gotten behind him and flanked him. He rolled his eyes as he took off his backpack.
Fine.
Caleb threw his backpack to Andy.
Here.
Caleb watched the backpack sail through the air. He gasped in horror as Andy didn't catch the backpack with his hands, but with his face. Andy glared at Caleb with rage. Andy started walking towards Caleb while cracking his knuckles.
You're going to regret that.
I already do.
The bullies started to close in on Caleb. Andy stopped in his tracks when he saw something behind Caleb.
What the hell is that?
Caleb didn't have to turn around. He knew what Andy was talking about. However, Andy and his goons didn't know what they were looking at. The skeletal rooster slashed at Marcus so quickly that it didn't register that the monster had hit anything until Marcus's torso slid off his legs and his head slid off his neck. Tom tried to back away with horror on his face.
Oh my god!
Before Tom could get away, the skeletal rooster was on him and was plunging its beak into the top of the boy's head. The skeletal rooster retracted its beak, while also retracting Tom's brain and tossing it aside. Tom's empty eyes fell upon a horrified Andy before falling to the ground. Caleb ran as the skeletal rooster turned its attention to Andy.
I hate this.
Caleb ran as fast as his legs could take him, as he did his best to ignore Andy's screams. Caleb made his way home, where Dan was waiting on the porch and looking angry.
Hey, where you been, lard butt?
Caleb stopped a moment to catch his breath. Caleb was about to warn Dan about the threat that was coming.
Dan!
Spit it out, Porky.
Caleb glared daggers at Dan.
You know what? Never mind.
Caleb ran off. With Dan scratching his head.
What the hell is his problem?
Dan looked towards where Caleb had run from to see the giant skeletal rooster.
What the fuck?
Caleb ran to the park behind his trailer park, ignoring Dan's screams of death. Caleb's mind raced as fast as his legs as he tried to find a place to hide. Caleb saw a bridge in the distance.
That will do.
Caleb made his way under the bridge. Caleb hid under the bridge and listened for the monster. He shivered as he heard the monster walking on the bridge above him. Caleb listened as the creature walked further and further and further and further away. Suddenly, the giant skeletal rooster jumped in front of Caleb and crowed in his face. The skeletal rooster stepped towards Caleb as he climbed backwards, away.
No. No, please, don't hurt me.
The rooster leaned its head forward. Caleb put out a hand in a pathetic attempt to defend himself and closed his eyes to await the inevitable. But he was surprised that the skeletal rooster was rubbing its head on his hand as if it wanted a pet.
What is this?
The rooster monster stared at Caleb with empty sockets. Caleb smiled.
Were you protecting me? Thanks
As
to
if
you.
to answer,
No
the
one
skeletal
will ever mess
rooster
with me again.
bowed in a regal manner. As regal as a giant skeletal rooster could bow. Before Caleb. Caleb shook his head in disbelief.
Thanks to you, no one will ever mess with me again.
Caleb petted the rooster's skull. The monster seemed to enjoy it. Caleb smiled evilly. David emptied the contents of his stomach. Into the toilet. David washed his hands as a large man in a cowboy hat stared at him with concern.
You alright there, boy?
David nodded.
Doing better now.
The cowboy shook his head.
Careful with that road food, partner.
David nodded.
Yeah, I'll be sure to do that.
David drove down a lonely desert road, trying to concentrate on the driving and ignore the box of chicken nuggets in his passenger side seat. The cowboy was right. The nuggets didn't agree with David. But he didn't hate it. Quite the contrary. He thought it was delicious. But that story was a bit much. He was fighting himself on whether he wanted another nugget. He shook his head.
No, David. Don't eat it.
David's car was pulled off on the side of the road. David was eating another nugget.
All right, little nugget. Take me on a journey.
David's sight went to black. Then, suddenly, brought him to a city. Deep in the city of Detroit. At the legal offices of Mark Tackett. Regina sat before Mark's desk, crying.
And then I found him dead on the carpet.
Mark shook his head.
Oh my god.
Mark rolled his eyes.
I didn't believe it for a second.
Regina looked frustrated.
The fuck you mean you don't believe it?
Mark stood up and started pacing.
We need to make this believable. The alligator tears aren't going to cut it. Hell,
Mark grabbed Regina's wrist and ripped an eyedropper out of her hand.
I could clearly see the eyedropper in your hand. Come on!
Ugh! What's the use? They already have a mountain of evidence against me.
Mark rolled his eyes.
That doesn't matter.
Regina was taken aback.
It doesn't.
Of course not. You just have to win the jury. They're morons.
How do you know they're morons?
Because they couldn't get out of jury duty. You hit them in the feels, they'll ignore evidence.
Really?
Trust me. Now, from the top.
Mark sat back on his desk.
Mrs. Cartwright, where were you the night of the 11th of January?
Regina composed herself. And went back to crying.
So, I was at the salon, and all of a sudden...
After a successful rehearsal with Regina, Mark made his way to church.
Oh! Fucking move!
Certainly not because he was religious. Oh, no. He was a proud atheist. He was just fulfilling an obligation. At the church, Father Ryan Tackett was reading his Bible in his office when an altar boy walked in.
Father Tassett.
Father Tackett looked up.
Yes, child?
The altar boy pointed a thumb over his shoulder.
I think your brother's here.
Father Tackett sneered.
Thank you.
Mark and Father Tackett made their way to the pub. They found a picnic table and set up their weekly chess game. Father Tackett moved a pawn forward.
How have you been, Mark?
Mark pushed one of his own pawns forward.
Same as always. Naked bank defending degenerates.
Father Tackett moved his knight.
Why do you defend these people?
Mark sneered as he placed another pawn forward.
Are you still worried about saving my soul, bro?
Father Tackett glared at Mark as he pushed forward another pawn.
It's never too late to be forgiven.
Mark moved his bishop.
I don't need forgiveness from your imaginary friend.
Father Tackett sneered as he moved his other knight.
I don't need you to believe, brother. I just need you to get better.
Mark moved another pawn.
I'm not sick.
Father Tackett moved a pawn forward.
You know that's not what I meant.
Mark smiled as he moved his queen and took a pawn.
Watch your king.
Father Tackett looked down to see Mark's queen threatening his king.
Clever move.
That's why I'm a good.
Father Tackett moved his king out of the danger zone.
No one questioned your intelligence, little brother.
Mark moved his king again.
Sadly, I question your judgment.
Mark moved his queen again. Mark looked up and smiled at his brother.
Checkmate.
Father Tackett looked down to find that he had nowhere to move his king.
Good game.
Mark shrugged.
If you say so.
Mark stood up.
Well, that's enough fun for today. What's that? 5 to 1?
Father Tackett shrugged.
I don't keep track. I just like your company.
Mark rolled his eyes.
Sure you do.
Father Tackett made a sign of the cross.
I will pray for you.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Mark returned the sign of the cross, ending it with a jerk-off motion before leaving.
See you, brother.
Father Tackett looked to the sky.
Lord, give me strength.
Mark had to rush to an appointment at a seedy motel. After a vigorous appointment, Mark laid next to his partner, Joanne. Mark was putting his clothes back on as Joanne stared at him.
Did you have a good time?
Mark smirked as he zipped up his pants.
Of course I did. How much I owe you?
I figured that since you got me off, that I would get you off.
Good. I only got a card.
Joanne shrugged. Mark went to leave. Joanne reached for him.
Wait.
Mark stopped in his tracks and gave Joanne a curious look.
Yes?
Joanne gave Mark a demure smile.
Don't you have any treats for me?
Mark smiled as he reached into his coat.
Of course.
Mark pulled out a small bag of white powder and tossed it to Joanne.
Main candy for my good girl.
Joanne caught the baggie and giggled like a little girl on Christmas Day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mark smiled slyly.
Because you're worth it.
Mark went to leave. Joanne reached for him again.
Wait.
Mark stopped again, rolling his eyes in annoyance.
Yes?
Joanne gives Mark a sheepish, cute smile. As cute as it could be with her missing teeth, that is.
Could you go to the motel office and re-up my stay?
Mark sneered.
If you never talk like that again.
Thank you, sweetie.
Mark smiled and nodded.
Welcome. Bye.
Mark went to leave. Joanne stopped him again.
Wait.
Mark stopped and growled in frustration before glaring back at Joanne.
Yes?
Joanne, oblivious to Mark's annoyance, smiled at him.
Be careful tonight. I hear it's supposed to snow.
Mark forced a smile.
Thanks.
Mark stormed out before his lady friend could say anything. Mark walked to his car, taking note of the flakes of snow starting to fall.
Guess she was right. The girl should have been a meteorologist.
Mark continued to his car, completely walking past the motel office. Mark sped down the road. Mark was on his phone.
I told you not to call me this late.
Meanwhile, Kyle had just finished a long rideshare shift, and he was on his way home, fighting sleep. Mark's car continued to speed down the road. Mark was still screaming on his phone.
Then spend the night in jail. I need to get home, asshole.
Kyle rounded a corner, barely, as he forgot to keep his eyes open. Mark's car sped around a corner. Mark continued to shout on his phone.
That's gonna cost you...
Kyle saw the speeding car too late. Mark saw the car coming towards him too late.
Oh, fuck!
The cars slammed into each other. A few minutes passed. Mark awoke on his steering wheel. Mark looked across his smashed hood to the other smashed hood, filled with rage.
Motherfucker!
Mark stomped towards the other car.
Alright, asshole. Do you know who I am? I will have your ass on the street faster than...
Mark peered into the other car and was shocked to see that the other driver was laying on his steering wheel, dead.
Shit.
Mark reached for his phone and couldn't find it.
Where the...
Mark looked around and found his phone in a snowbank, shattered.
Damn it.
The snowfall got heavier. Mark walked the streets, shivering. Mark saw a phone store. Mark ran up to the phone store, filled with hope. But that hope faded when he saw the store was dark on the inside, and he saw the words closed on the front door.
Damn it!
Mark got to the door of the cell phone store and beat on it.
Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Hey, young man, calm down there.
Mark looked over to see an old, homeless man staring at him.
Why don't you mind your own business?
The old homeless man limped towards Mark.
Don't talk to me like that. What are you gonna do about it?
Mark was surprised to see how quickly the old homeless man was descending on him. He saw a cane go up into the air.
I'll teach you some respect.
Before it struck, and darkness filled Mark's vision. Mark awoke. He quickly remembered what happened and checked his pockets. Much to his chagrin, they were empty.
Damn it!
Mark continued his trek through the snow.
Phone. I need a phone.
Mark found his way to an adult theater.
Maybe they have a phone.
Mark entered the lobby of the adult theater. Mark looked around in disgust at the far too old carpeting on the floor, with questionable stains. A creepy clerk stared at Mark with a dirty smile.
Can I help you?
Mark stared at the clerk uncomfortably.
I need a phone.
The clerk pointed to an old payphone in the corner.
Oh, there's old Reliable in the corner there. She might work.
Mark sneered. The clerk shrugged. Mark went to the phone, picked up the receiver, and found a sticky substance on it.
Oh.
Mark looked at the clerk in disgust.
What the fuck?
The clerk merely laughed. Mark was in the bathroom, washing his hands furiously.
Oh.
Mark left the bathroom to find that the payphone was gone. Mark looked to the creepy clerk.
Where's the payphone?
The clerk shrugged. The clerk gave Mark a creepy smile.
I don't like your tone, sir.
Mark brought his face inches from the creepy clerk's face.
What are you going to do about it?
Mark flew through the air and hit the ground hard. Mark looked up at the creepy clerk, who just smiled down at him.
Thank you for your patronage, but please don't come back.
With that said, the creepy clerk went back into the theater.
Like I would ever come back here, dickhole.
The snow got worse, and Mark was struggling to find shelter. Mark turned into an alley. Mark saw several homeless people laying in the alley. He saw a woman wrapped in a thick blanket. He looked over to make sure no one was looking. Mark tiptoed over to the sleeping woman. He gave her a few pokes.
Hey.
When the woman didn't respond, he figured she was past sleeping, so he shrugged.
Since you're not using it.
Mark pulled the blanket off the woman and wrapped it around himself. He looked at his new blanket in disgust.
This could use a serious wash.
Is it warm enough for you?
Mark looked around to see who was speaking.
Huh?
Mark's eyes landed on the dead woman.
Did you say something, lady?
The woman didn't look at Mark. She just laid on the ground, facing away from him. But she didn't talk.
Lady? I should have figured you wouldn't remember me. You've screwed so many people over that the faces probably all just blend together. You don't even recognize the mother of your child.
Mark shook his head in disbelief.
Harry?
Oh, so it was your baby.
What? No, that paternity test said it wasn't mine.
You paid for those results, we both know it.
Listen, I wasn't ready to be a father.
You weren't ready. Why did you insist on no condom then?
Once I get home, I'll send you money for the baby.
Send it where? I don't have a mailbox. Besides, it's too late.
What do you mean?
The baby died.
Died? How?
Starvation.
I should have known. Your habits were always more important to you. Last I heard, you OD'd.
A terrifying realization came to Mark.
Died?
Mary turned her head to reveal bright white skin hued with blue. Her eyes were bright and white without pupils. There was a wicked smile on her face.
It took you long enough to figure it out.
Mary picked herself up in a sickeningly jerky way.
You just take and take.
Mark kept backing from his dead ex.
I'm sorry.
Mark looked to see another frozen corpse coming towards him. She looked familiar.
Joanne, why are you here?
You didn't pay for my motel room. I was kicked out and forced to the street. My pimp found me and beat me to death.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mark saw another frozen corpse shambling towards him. It was an older man in a suit.
How's that murdering bitch enjoying the house you helped her steal from me?
Mark couldn't get a word out over the throngs of frozen corpses shambling towards him. He would try to negotiate one last time.
Please! I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't hurt me.
We want warmth.
We need warmth.
Give us warmth. Warmth.
Warmth.
Warmth.
We need warmth.
Give us warmth. Warmth.
Warmth.
Warmth. Warmth. Warmth.
Mark backed up until he found himself against a wall. The frozen corpses continued to shamble towards him. Mark put up his hands in a meager defense.
Get away! Get away!
The frozen corpses crept closer and closer.
Don't!
We need warmth.
Closer until they were close enough to grab for Mark. His frozen hand grabbed Mark's wrist, and he immediately felt the agony of his body heat being drained from him. He tore his wrist from the frozen hand.
We need warmth.
Let go of it!
Another frozen hand grabbed his shoulder, draining more heat. Mark tore his shoulder from the frozen hand.
We need
Get away!
The frozen corpses piled on top of Mark.
warmth. Warmth. We need warmth. We need warmth.
Give us warmth.
Draining his warmth.
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 We need warmth.
Give us warmth.
We need warmth.
Give us warmth. Warmth.
Mark screamed in
Warmth.
We need warmth.
Give us warmth.
Police were on the scene. Two cops brought Father Tack to Mark's tomb.
We're sorry to tell you the news.
Father Tack nodded solemnly. Well,
proceeded to put him down on the ground and start kicking him.
Thank you for
And he has
letting
a
me
couple stab wounds in his back and went over his ear.
Lish.
And tried to keep him alive, and when we got here,
The other
checked
cop
him out, and that was it.
growled.
Not to be
insistent, we don't have a lot of time. The only reason we let you on the scene is because you
What happened here anyway?
And he pulled out a gun.
He did?
Yes.
Father
They
Tack
just took the
took
gun away
up
from
his
him.
hand.
One of them has it now. He showed it to me.
Thank you.
And
I won't be long.
they proceeded to put
Father
him down on the ground and
Tack
start
looked
kicking him.
inside of the
And he has a couple stab
where
wounds in
Mark's
his back
body
and
lay,
went over his ear.
steering. There was no
Kept him alive,
color
and
to
when we got here, the doctor checked him out, and that was it.
Father Tack shook his head. His eyes were full of tears.
What happened here anyway?
And he pulled out a gun.
He did?
Yes, the Hells
Father
Angels took the
Tack
gun away from him.
touched
One of them has it
his
now. He showed it to me.
Uh-huh.
And they proceeded to put him down on the ground and start kicking him. And he has a couple stab wounds in his back and went over his ear.
Father Tack was surprised by the cracking sound.
What happened here anyway?
And he pulled out a gun.
He did?
Yes, the Hells Angels took the gun away from
Father
him.
Tack
One of them
watched
has
in
it now. He showed it
shock
to me.
and horror
And
as Mark's body
they
began
proceeded to
to
put him down on the ground and
crack.
start kicking him. And he has a couple stab wounds in his back and went over his ear. And tried to keep him alive, and when we got here, the doctor checked him out, and that was it.
Pronounced him dead.
And shattered into several pieces.
species.
What happened here anyway? And he pulled out a gun. Huh? He did? Yes, the Hells Angels took the gun away from him. One of them has it now, he showed it to me. And the
David was driving down a long stretch of road at night. He was making his road trip to California to visit family. It was a long trip from the East Coast, and even longer since someone stole his car radio. He looked at the hole where the radio used to be.
Thanks, asshole.
David continued his long trek down the road. As David drove, his stomach began growling.
I gotta get something to eat.
David drove for a while, looking for somewhere to get a bite to eat. After another hour on the road, and an increasingly angry stomach, he saw a restaurant in the distance.
Finally!
David pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant. He read the sign.
Gnash Dash.
The words were surrounded by razor-sharp, bloody teeth.
Interesting sign.
David shrugged.
Whatever, I'm hungry.
David pulled through the driveway, up to a dirty speaker box. He stuck his head out the window and spoke into the box.
Hello?
Welcome to Gnash Dash. What would you like tonight?
David looked around.
I'm not seeing a menu.
Pull up to the window.
David was taken aback.
I didn't tell you my order.
It's alright, I got you, David.
And David shook his head in disbelief.
I never told you.
Pull up to the window, please. Your total is $6.66.
David glared at the speaker curiously.
Alright.
David drove up to the window. The window opens, revealing a strange-looking clerk wearing a clearly dirty uniform with a ridiculous paper hat. He smiled at David, revealing crooked yellow teeth. David was unsettled, but his hunger had bypassed his discomfort.
Hello?
Hello?
There was an uncomfortable silence until David broke it.
So, anyway, my food?
The clerk held out his hand as he continued to give David that unsettling smile without Thank you.
My payment.
Oh, right.
David reached into his pocket and grabbed a few watered-up bills and change, and practically threw his money into the clerk's hand. The clerk nodded to David
I'll bring your food out in a moment.
before proceeding into the surprisingly dark restaurant. David tried looking in, but the darkness was too thick.
Hope they pay their lining bill soon.
David had nodded off, waiting for his food.
David.
David was startled away.
Ha!
David looked at the clerk, who was smiling. Still unsettling, as he handed him a small box.
Here's your food.
David timidly took the box.
Thank you.
David continued his journey on the road. David kept eyeing the small box in his passenger seat. He shrugged.
Might as well see what I got.
David sat on the toilet, snoring. The clerk stood at the front desk, looking concerned.
What's that guy doing in there?
David continued to sleep on the toilet. The clerk pounded.
Hey!
David sputtered awake.
Huh?
The clerk continued to pound on the door.
This isn't a hotel, buddy.
David was back on the road. David concentrated on the road. At least, he tried, as his eyes continued to travel to the box of nuggets in his passenger seat. David's car screeched to a stop on the side of the road. David ran across the desert with the nugget box in his hand. David was about to throw his last nugget into the night.
I don't need you!
Halfway through his throw, he stopped. He stared at the nugget in his hand.
Damn it!
Before shoving it into his mouth. It was a normal day at Carpenter Elementary. The kids mulled around until the bell rang. Alex was getting some books out of his locker. He was just about to shut his locker when he saw Jeremy staring at him with a maniacal smile.
Hey!
Alex gave Jeremy a suspicious look. Jeremy proceeded to dump books into his backpack, making sure that Alex saw that he had more books in his bag. Jeremy framed innocent curiosity.
Is that all you can carry?
Alex gave Jeremy a glare as he dumped more books into his backpack. Alex and Jeremy raced down the hall with heavy backpacks. While dodging through several other kids, Alex and Jeremy stared at the staircase. Alex and Jeremy glared at each other.
I mean, I can get up there first.
In your dreams, Alex and Jeremy ran up the staircase as well as they could with oat-filled backpacks. Alex was getting a lead on Jeremy. He gave his friend a smile.
Looks like I'm tougher.
Jeremy glared angrily at Alex. Jeremy reached up and grabbed Alex's backpack and yanked as hard as he could.
Whoa!
Alex tumbled down the stairs.
Ow! Oh! Ow!
Jeremy ran down the stairs to check on Alex.
Alex, are you okay?
Alex glared at Jeremy with gritted teeth.
Yeah, just fine.
Before punching him in the face. The two boys fought. Alex and Jeremy sat in the principal's office, covered in cuts and bruises. Jeremy turned to Alex.
I still would have won.
Alex glared at Jeremy, angrily, before punching him in the face again. Jeremy glared at Alex while holding his hurt shin. Jeremy leapt into Alex, and they started fighting again. Alex and Jeremy's friendship was complicated. They had always competed with each other. It was every time they got together. When they were playing tag.
I tagged you.
When they were taking tests at school.
Finished before you. Screw you, Jeremy.
And basically, anything they did together.
Hey, Jeremy, what? Up yours.
After their school scruffle, the boys were sent home, and nothing changed. Alex was riding his bike home when he heard a bike bell.
Huh?
Alex looked over to find Jeremy riding his bike next to him.
I'll get home before you, snail boy.
Jeremy sped ahead of Alex. Alex picked up the pace. The boys pedaled their bikes as fast as their feet could carry them. Neither could quite get ahead of the other. The two boys rounded a corner and almost ran into an old man.
Hey, look out!
Alex and Jeremy veered off.
Yikes! Whoa!
Alex's bike hit a rock, sending him flying over the handlebars. Jeremy's bike hit a rock, sending him flying over his handlebars. Alex and Jeremy fell into piles of leaves. A few moments passed, and the boys awoke. The old man looked down towards them.
Boys, okay?
Not expecting to see the old man, the boys screamed in terror, jumped to their feet, and started running. The old man tried to call after them.
Boys, wait! Don't go that way!
But to no avail, as the boys continued running. The two boys ran until the sight of something stopped them in their tracks. The boys found themselves staring at an old, dilapidated house. There was something about it that filled the boys with fear. The old man eventually caught up with them.
Hold on.
The old man stopped to catch his breath.
I'm glad I caught you before you went towards that house.
The boys looked at each other and back at the old man.
What's up with the house?
The old man looked surprised.
You don't know?
Both boys shrugged and shook their heads. The old man shook his head in disappointment.
They don't teach kids anything these days. It was several years ago. The young couple had just got married. However, the love didn't last.
Are you seeing someone else?
This again?
And things got worse.
You're a whore. A filthy whore.
Why do we have to keep going over this?
How can you do this to me?
I'm not talking about this anymore.
I hate you. Until one night, things got a little too heated.
I'll kill you.
And Loverboy ended up stabbing his old lady to death. Once his grisly business was finished, the guilt set in.
What have I done?
And so he ended up dancing at the end of a rope.
Alex and Jeremy stared at the old man in confusion.
He hung himself.
Both boys nodded.
Oh.
The old man shook his head.
Anyway, some say their spirits haunt that house to this very day. All those who enter never come out.
The boys looked at the old man in awe.
Thanks for warning us, mister.
The old man smiled and nodded.
No problem.
The old man's smile faded into a stern look.
Now make sure you watch where the hell you're going from now on.
Both boys nodded.
Yes, sir.
The old man walked off, grumbling to himself.
Stupid kids.
The boys looked at each other and smiled.
I bet you could stay the night there.
Alex and Jeremy went home. After the boys were scolded,
Alex!
Jeremy?
they packed up their bags and made their way to the abandoned house. The boys stood before the abandoned house, just staring at it. Alex and Jeremy looked at each other.
After you.
The two boys eventually entered the house. The boys shined their flashlights around as they looked around the inside of the old house. Meanwhile, there was a storm brewing outside. The boys continued exploring the house. Alex stopped and listened to the rain outside.
Damn, I didn't know there was going to be a storm tonight.
Alex went to look back at Jeremy.
Jeremy?
But Jeremy was gone. Jeremy found his way into the living room. He turned to talk to Alex,
We should check it.
but found out that his friend was missing.
Alex?
Alex found a flight of stairs and started to ascend. Jeremy kept looking around for his friend
Alex?
until he heard screaming.
Huh?
Alex explored the upstairs, trying to find his friend,
Jeremy?
but was answered by a scratching noise.
Huh?
Jeremy found himself in a living room, looking for the source of the screaming.
Hello?
Meanwhile, outside, the storm raged. A lightning bolt illuminated the night. The lightning strike illuminated the living room. Showing Jeremy the ghost he'd heard earlier. Jeremy screamed, dropped his flashlight, and ran out of the room. Also, meanwhile, the lightning strike illuminated that bedroom that Alex was in. To Alex's horror, to reveal the monstrous hand scratching at the window. Alex screamed, dropped his flashlight, and he ran off. Jeremy ran down a dark hallway. Alex ran to the stairs. Jeremy found himself at the foot of the stairs. Alex started making his way downstairs. When he tripped,
Whoa!
Jeremy stood at the bottom of the stairs. He looked up to see a dark figure flying towards him. Alex flew downstairs towards a dark figure ready to consume him. He had nothing to do but to scream. The two dark figures crashed into each other.
Oof!
Where the ancient floorboards couldn't take the sudden weight and impact, the boys fell through the floor. Into a surprisingly deep basement. Once the boys stopped screaming, there was silence. Except for the storm outside. And the wind blowing through the old drapes and living. And the tree branch scratching on the upstairs bedroom window. A few years later, Lucy and Rachel rode their bikes down a street.
Catch up, Lucy.
Lucy struggled to keep up with her sister.
Slow down, Rachel.
Lucy caught up with Rachel, who was stopped before an abandoned house.
What are you looking at?
Rachel was so transfixed by the house that she didn't look at her sister when she answered.
This house. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about it that...
Stay away from that house.
The two girls turned their heads quickly to see an old man hobbling towards them.
That house is haunted.
The two girls looked at each other in shock.
Haunted?
The old man told the girls the tale of the house.
And they never saw the boys again.
The girls listened intently.
So you stay away unless you want to haunt those halls too.
The girls nodded.
We won't go in there.
The old man smiled, nodded,
good,
and walked away. The sisters looked at each other in excitement as soon as the old man left.
Let's check it out.
David felt himself being dragged.
Oh.
David awoke to see the clerk from the Gnash Dash dragging him. The clerk flashed a creepy, snaggletooth smile.
Hello.
You would think that David would be curious about how the clerk had found him. You would think David would be curious why he was currently being dragged through the desert. You would think that David would be curious about how he got into this situation. But all David thought was,
Can I have more nuggets?
You're going to help me make more.
David smiled.
Good.
Before going back to unconsciousness. David heard the sound of something being growled. And awoke to see the clerk grinding a human leg in a meat grinder. David looked down, and a horrifying sight woke him up. David's legs were gone! The clerk looked towards David.
Whoops. You weren't supposed to wake up yet.
The clerk grabbed a meat cleaver, raised it above his head.
We can't have that.
No. No!
The clerk brought the meat cleaver down. A car drove up to the order speaker. The driver rolled down the window and shouted,
Hello?
The clerk was washing the blood off his hands until he heard.
Hello?
The clerk looked up from what he was doing. The clerk talked into the intercom.
How can I help you?
Can I get some of those nightmare nuggets?
The creepy, snaggletooth smile extended across the clerk's face.
Of course. Just made a fresh batch.